Alright, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 22 of the Zyori Breakdown. We are here yet again with some really interesting stuff. Today we're going to look at the ORGE Esports versus one of the QsQ teams. The Q Squad, one of Nova's training teams. I don't recall which number they're registered as because their numbers are too long and there's just too many of them. Anyway, this is FJ's team. They're tagged up as Z. I don't know what that means, but that's how they're tagged up at least. And we're going to take a look. We're going to see what they're up to. So this breakdown is going to be a little bit weird for a couple of reasons. One, I wanted to do something much different when I first planned breakdown number 22. Initially, why? Sorry. Okay. I'm sorry about that. Never mind. Anyway, so I originally was going to look at two crummy replays. I was going to look at a solo mid Tempest replay, and I was going to look at one of the ORGE Esports games from like the round of 128 that was a complete stomp. But they did do a suicide lane Tempest, and I just wanted to talk about how well-rounded Tempest can be and how versatile of a role that hero can play, especially with the lock-picking phase, or lock-picking mode, I should say. It makes it a lot more interesting when you just talk about Tempest in general, because she can play such a variety of roles. I mean, seeing ORGE Esports in this match that we're about to see just pick Ophelia and Tempest back to back is just like, I never would have guessed that was coming. Changing the meta one game at a time. So it's actually quite interesting. Anyhow, right after I'd prepped this breakdown, I was planning on doing it yesterday morning. Some stuff came up, so we're going to do it today. Lo and behold, yesterday, ORGE Esports executes one of the strategies that I wanted to talk about in beautiful form. It looked absolutely great. Yes, Tempest is not a girl. That's something else that I wanted to talk about as well. What gender is Tempest? Someone called me out for referring to Tempest as a she, and that feels natural. Whenever I say Tempest is about to go in, she's going to get an ultimate, that feels really natural. Even though if you look at Tempest, it's clearly a man. We'll zoom in when we get into the game. But there are no breasts, and he's got a lot of arms, and his face, he looks pretty manly. I mean, Tempest, of all the heroes, I think Tempest may be one of the more manly. But something about the colors, I don't know. Anyhow, so ORGE Esports executed this strategy, and this replay was just phenomenal. They played Ophelia Tempest in 2 games that best of 3 series. I actually didn't watch Game 2. I was casting during Game 2. I did catch a little bit of Game 3, and I downloaded the replay, and there were a lot of intense things that happened. It's a really interesting game from a lot of different angles, and this is probably going to be a somewhat lengthy breakdown depending on how fast we scoot through the replay, because I think the replay itself is about 60 minutes long. The in-game timer is like 52-ish, so it's a pretty long game, and there are a lot of different things to keep in mind. I want to spend a good bit of time looking at the drafting as well. So I think without much further ado, we can go ahead and get right into it. I do want to say as well, this was casted on the HonCast channel, so they do have VODs if you're interested in just seeing the game casted without interruptions and you know, my thoughts just scattered about. Feel free to go check it out. ORGE Esports versus one of the Q squads from yesterday. So I think we can go ahead and get right to it. So here we are. Let's go ahead and get started. So I started partway through the lock or the picking phase here, well, I guess the banning phase, just because I wanted to save a little bit of time. It gives us something to review. Both teams obviously really not trying to play hard carry style, and I can understand it from what ORGE Esports does here. They move in to this game with a very pushing intensive strategy, so it makes sense. The Hellborn side, I guess they just don't want to deal with XXF on a Silhouette or a Dark Lady, probably just a little bit of preference. Just interesting how it ends up working out on both sides of the coin. The locks are pretty straightforward, except for that one little guy, Slither, that one little green ball of love right there. That ends up being a really interesting pick, and what's really crafty about it is you can't really tell if it's one of those troll picks that we see ever so frequently where teams just throw whoever they want in there, Scout, Blood Hunter, just because they don't care. There's 4 heroes that are going to be very obvious picks, and they're just going to throw away those last 2. Slither kind of fits into that category in a lot of situations, but I don't know. He ends up getting picked here. So it's sort of interesting to think about the drafting from that perspective, where of all the heroes, that's the one that you're not going to be afraid of. Let's take a look at how this draft starts out, though. First pick from ORGE Esports is Glacius. A great first pick in this scenario because it gives you no information. It gives you absolutely no intel. He's just Glacius. You could execute pretty much any strategy under the sun with a Glacius. So I think what FJ does here on the Hellborn side of things is a really smart play. He goes Moraxis Nymphora. Nothing wrong with that. That's a great, strong lane, and they should be able to win that lane regardless of where they put it. If they want to put it close lane, long lane, or even just put it in the middle to dominate some of that rune control. That's great. Nymphora is a very powerful hero. The problem with Nymphora, though, is she's not nearly as versatile as Glacius is. Glacius, as I said, can fit into a lot of different roles. You can tri-lane him, you can pair him with a lot of different people, he can play that roaming support. Nymphora isn't quite on that level. Her ultimate gives her an edge over some of the things that Glacius can do, but she's not nearly as well-rounded. So this is when things get a little bit crazy, though. ORGE Esports end up picking Ophelia and Tempest back-to-back right here, which is just like, forget about any predictions I would have made. Wow. So it begs the question, well, who's going to do what? Are they going to do that kind of strategy where it's going to be 2 or 3 solo lanes, and then Ophelia is going to take one jungle, Tempest the other, one of them just going to be in a slightly more risky situation? That's certainly a possibility. Or are they going to lane Tempest and throw Ophelia in the jungle? Ophelia is one hero that absolutely cannot lane. I mean, I can't really think of a way that you could lane Ophelia appropriately. I mean, it's just one of those things. So that just leaves Tempest as kind of the wild card here. Now, Tempest and Ophelia aside, there are some more interesting things happening in this draft. Looking at these locks, I would have thought for sure, absolutely for sure, that our Hellborn side would have held out to pick up Bubbles for their suicide hero after seeing Tempest and Ophelia. So when you see Tempest and Ophelia, the first thing that comes to mind is, holy Toledo, that's going to be some pushing power. I don't know or care what they're going to do with these last picks, though we do see that Polywog Priest and Slither are still on the board, which is really, really scary. That could just totally cripple us before the 15-minute mark. That has to be one of the things that's going on in the head of FJ right now, or hopefully the rest of the team as they're all communicating about this draft. Why they went with Hag is a little bit beyond me. Perhaps that they were thinking Bubbles would be first picked by ORGE Esports, and that certainly is a viable way to go about it, but then they probably could have picked up a Luna Polywog Priest. So this Wretched Hag pick is actually a little bit interesting here when you actually think about it in that regard, and it sort of ends up being one of the many missteps that this QsQ team ends up making throughout this game. The problem is why I'm sort of hesitant to make a bold statement there. I don't really know what I would have liked to see from Hag instead. They end up picking, well, we can see right here, of course, Polywog Priest gets picked up, and they end up going Forsaken Archer and a Luna. I really like the Luna pickup. You need that creep clear. You need somebody that's going to be able to easily clear these creeps, and Luna is one such hero. Bubbles does that really well also. Hag, not so much. Sonar Scream certainly can, but it forces him to compromise some of that crafty positioning. And I mean, we're not talking about just like, oh, creeps are pressuring the tower. We're talking about when the team is pushing, you need to be able to clear those creeps from a safe distance while the rest of your opponents are knocking on your front door. So Hag really doesn't fit into that role so well. Nor does Nymphora. I mean, Pod and Zeal can kind of help with the creep clearing, but the damage isn't really there. You know, it's not the same as a Bubbles or an Luna for that matter. So if they wanted to carry, I mean, there were a couple of other heroes on the board, and to be perfectly frank, I think Emerald Warden would have been a fantastic choice to pick up here instead of Forsaken Archer. If they had gone Bubbles, Emerald Warden instead of Archer, Hag, I think that may have worked out a little bit better, mostly because of that silence for Emerald Warden. We'll observe throughout this game that Tempest doesn't pick up a Shrunken Head at all. Maybe at the very, very end, but I think he still doesn't even get one. If they had that strong silence from Emerald Warden, certainly could have helped. Emerald Warden's just an all-around strong hero. I mean, I really like him. I think he's a little bit underestimated, not underestimated, undervalued, I should say. One of the other things as well, this is going to be one of those games where QsQ just needs to survive the early game. They need to make an effort not to get too far behind, because that's all Orange is going to do. They don't have a carry right now. We'll see here they're going to pick Slither with that last pick, and he can kind of carry, but they build him as a mid-game hero. They go for the tanky Slither build. So already, knowing some of that information about how this game unfolds, with some spoilers included, it seems that our Hellborn side is a little bit gets a little bit out-drafted here, given some of the options that were on the board. Like I said, Bubbles for that creep clear, but most importantly, Emerald Warden just really would have fit in nicely. One of the things about Emerald Warden also is that he's a little bit more of a mid-game carry. Around that level 11 mark, he has a bit more of a presence than Forsaken Archer, but he can't carry as hard as Forsaken Archer. In a situation like this, you don't really want a Dark Lady. That's too hard of a carry. She's going to peak way too late in the game, and you're really not going to be able to see her shine the way you would in kind of a normal game that isn't really super hyper-aggressive in the way of pushing. So I'm going to do my best to skip through this replay reasonably quickly. I'm going to try and keep it on ×2 as much as possible. I do have some great notes here, jotting down some particularly interesting timestamps and things that I want to look at. I really want to focus on the fights. This game ends up being a series of pushes. Orange Esports actually executes this strategy that they're going for here very, very nicely. And throughout this entire game, we're just going to see a series of pushes and defenses. And right around, I think, the 15-minute mark or so, it's just going to be non-stop aggression from Orange Esports. So it'll be fight, then 2 or 3 minutes of no action. Fight, 2 or 3 minutes of no action. And I do this like 6 or 7 times throughout the rest of this game, as this ends up being about a 50-minute replay or so. So it ends up being relatively interesting to look at in that regard, but we're going to spend a lot of time fast-forwarding through that downtime, because really all Orange Esports is going to be doing is waiting for their cooldowns to come back up. So we're going to go ahead and pause here, because already some interesting things are happening as we are tunnel visioning on the mid lane. As we've talked about many times in the past, the laning phase is a little bit of a dice roll. You don't really know what your opponents are going to do. This isn't League of Legends, where you know pretty much every game there's going to be a jungler, there's going to be a solo top, there's going to be a solo mid, and there's going to be 2 dual lanes, usually an AD carry, or well, sometimes an AP carry, and a hard support in that bottom lane. That's almost always what you see. Everyone just kind of does that. They like having 1v1 top. Sometimes you'll see, you know, a team send 2 tops, like, whoa, getting crafty. In Han, you just do whatever you want. You know, it's hard to say, okay, well, they're going to put their strong lane in the close lane. Maybe they want more access to farm, or they're going to put them in suicide so that the suicide hero doesn't get anything, or they might just want to dominate mid. It comes down to a little bit of personal preference and trying to read what your opponents are going to do. So here, Orange actually misreads a little bit, as they initially sent a tri-lane bottom. It was Glacius, Ophelia, and Slither in that bottom lane, just against a solo Wretched Hag. And you really don't need that much power to shut down a Hag. Let's take a look here. Wretched Hag is already really pooing the bed. She's sitting... Wait, why... Oh my... Wait, what... Why are these numbers like this? Oh my god, hold on. I'm gonna have to reset this replay. Look at this. It never reset the numbers. What is this? What? It never reset the numbers. That is ridiculous. Alright, hold on. You guys are gonna have to sit tight here for a second. I'm going to have to reload this replay. That's so frustrating. I'm looking at the numbers and I'm just like, wait a second, how does Hag have 200 creep? What? Like, what is going on? Urgh, replay system. Why you do this to me? Okay, here we go. That's so frustrating. That really is... Okay, so we should be in good shape here. So, alright, let me skip ahead. Where were we? Like, 12? Okay, so right here, there we go. And as you can see, Mr. FJ with Love is in chat. And he's exactly right, and that's kind of what they did. It was, I mean, I probably shouldn't have said a misread, but as you can see, yeah, they chase Hag out of the lane. So Slither gets free farm, and it starts very bad. All right, these are the numbers I was looking for. Slither starting 3-1, 4-1. Wretched Hag 0-0, getting chased completely out of the lane by a stray Minotaur and a stray Glacius. So he actually almost gets pinched here, but FJ manages to survive. All the while, though, of course, opening up a window for Slither down here in the bottom lane. So at this point, Slither's already in great shape. He's a level up on Hag. He's got a nice bit of farm. He's really feeling good about himself. Now, the thing about Slither is he's a very volatile hero, I think I'm going to say. He's a hero, obviously, with no escape mechanism, so he suffers from kind of our current metagame. That's very stun, crowd control, burst damage intensive, you know, heroes like Parasite and such. They kind of destroy Slither. He can't really run away from people that well. He just has no mechanism for such. That's why the build we're going to see in this game was so popular so long ago and still works now, building him as kind of a tanky hero. Just going Magic Armor, Helm of the Black Legion, and I think he ends up going a Frostburn before too long in this game also. So very, very tanky Slither and sort of a little bit of a carry as well. His magic damage will carry him through the mid-game, no problem. It's actually pretty ridiculous how much damage he does, as we'll see demonstrated throughout this match. The thing about Slither, though, where he can be really strong is against heroes that fall into a similar trap that he does. Now, we look at Wretched Hag and think, well, she has an escape mechanism, which is Blink, but she doesn't have a stun. She has no ability to lock down Slither. So between the reduced regeneration from his passive toxicity, the slow from his poison spray, and just all of that auto attack damage, Hag is not going to be able to lane against him, especially given the head start that he has. We've also seen Slither do quite well against Bubbles in the past, Electrician, and a handful of other really good suicide lane heroes. So Slither does fit in very specific situations, and this happens to be one of them. So again, sort of some crafty drafting coming out. So let's go ahead and continue on here. Slither's still farming. Hag's going to make her way back down to the bottom lane. I don't know, should I refer to the characters based on the gender of the people playing them or the gender of the character in-game? Because FJ, of course, is a man playing the female Wretched Hag. And I'm sort of I'm sort of reading chat a little bit. It's hard for me to talk and read at the same time, so generally when you're going to hear me stutter and be all like, I lost my train of thought, it's probably because I'm reading something you guys were saying and trying to think at the same time, and it just comes out as just jarbled nonsense. So I do try to check it from time to time. Anyhow, so yeah, things are not going to be good for Hag. The smart thing that Orange Esports does here, though, is they roamed that top lane. They send the tri-lane top to shut down this Meraxis Nymphora combo, what would be the strong lane. With Tempest as the recipient of the farm, basically Glacius is going to be supporting Tempest here, and Ophelia just going to be in the jungle for nearby support. One of the reasons that Tempest is so great in the suicide lane and why you can get away with doing stuff like Ophelia Tempest on the same team is because of the elemental deny. The same reason that Plague Rider was great in the long lane oh so long ago, and why Parasite even played that role for a little while as well. The lane control is just top notch. Over the long period in a game like this, you will see Tempest denying the denies that Tempest can get in lane really adding up. And it not only adds to the lane control, but it also adds to Tempest's ability to farm. Once this lane gets pulled up, I mean, just look at this lane control right now. They're in a pretty good position. On top of that, the elementals give Tempest a really strong ability to last hit those creeps, furthering his farming abilities. So more stuff that makes him a good suicide lane here. And of course, also the elementals just do a hell of a lot of damage. They really do a lot of damage. You can't really man up on a Tempest if he has 6 elementals out. They will kill you. You know, I mean, you can try to go toe-to-toe, but generally speaking, it's more cost-effective just to run away. And that's generally what we see people doing. So it's hard for people to really just man up on Tempest and be like, all right, let's just kill him, like we would a Pharaoh. So it ends up being a really smart play. As we can see in the bottom, we already saw a kill come out in favor of Slither. Hag is still struggling, sitting 2-1, Slither 17-11. We don't even need to look at this game again for the next 15 minutes. What we're seeing here is going to be rinse and repeat, wave after wave. That's all that's going to happen. Slither's base damage is just too high at this point compared to Hag. His harass is too good. Hag can't afford to get close to really put pressure on the creeps. Very unfortunate indeed. So let's go ahead. We need to keep up the pace here. We need to stay on time 2, times 2 here. And actually this early stage isn't all that exciting. A couple of ganks come in here, and Ophelia does a very nice job setting up this gank. And Meraxis actually just kind of gets gibbed right here. And what I like about this is just look at the heroes surrounded. We've got Glacius, Tempest, and Ophelia. 3 heroes generally classified as a support. 2 of them hard supports, and Tempest, okay, a jungler / support. You don't think of them as, oh no, run away, they're going to kill me if they group up, especially a hero like Meraxis. Meraxis, one of the tankiest heroes in the game. One of the few heroes that can survive quite nicely, even without an abundance of farm or an abundance of tanky items. And they just totally nuke him down before he can really do anything. There really wasn't much he could do there. He doesn't have Arcane Shield, getting a little bit greedy with those stat points maybe, but you still wouldn't really expect those 3 support heroes to be able to take you out. And that's just one of the many things I love about this game. Orange Esports showing us the versatility in such heroes like Glacius. He's not necessarily that, quote, ward bitch, sleaze bag, I'm not going to get any farm or experience or kills. Sometimes Glacius can shine too. Glacius is a person, and he has feelings. I really like this play in general. I love the play style, the aggression, and they execute it very nicely. Ophelia plays a very, very aggressive style in this game, and that's exactly what they need to do to win, which of course they ultimately do. Spoiler alert. Again, this show is not about spoilers. I pretty much assume that if you're watching these matches at this point, you've already seen them live or you've already heard about it. So if you are upset about getting spoiled, I apologize, but you know, you've had 24 hours to watch the replay. Actually, we can run this back. FJ gets killed here, and this is just a good demonstration of this lane. Because again, when I think of Hag in my head, my first thought comes to, that's a hero with an escape mechanism. That's why Hag's great in the suicide lane, because he can survive so easily against everyone. That's not the case here. And so they're only level 5, so this isn't like an ult nuke, like totally insane. Hag blinks back, and it's just too much damage. FJ did wait a little bit too long to blink. He did get poison sprayed right at the end, but just look at how much damage Slither does. That toxicity preventing him from regenning, and he's actually going to fall. So unfortunate for Mr. FJ. He ends up having a little bit of a rough game, but an 0-2 start is not so hot. Wang Wang gets caught in the jungle. I mean, not a big surprise, nothing groundbreaking, just, well, that's what happens when you're in the Hellborn jungle, and the Hellborn is afoot. Not too much else to say. Again, going to skip ahead here, and I don't think too much action actually happens until about the 7-minute mark. Things really get interesting in this game around the 15-minute mark or so. In sort of the interest of time and the interest of not casting that has been casted, but just pulling out those important points to learn a thing or two is what we're interested in here today. Nymphora going to get taken out. Again, very easy kill for this trio of support heroes. Of course, utilizing that Vulture Lord very nicely there by Ophelia in the mid lane all the while. This is actually a really interesting play as well, and I want to take a few minutes just to look at this one from every angle as we did when we were prepping for this breakdown. So we can watch it in fast motion. Poliwag goes top. He gets that illusion rune. As we can see, the Hellborn team has no wards. They don't know what rune it is, but they do get a little bit of sight of him here. Because Forsaken Archer's on the high ground, they can see all the way over there. Aluna picks up on it, and Mr. Fresh Blunts right here runs up and actually makes this happen. He gets the stun off, and this ends up being a very, very nice kill on the Poliwag Priest, who's already struggling in this mid lane. The ticket is just for Poliwag Priest not to die in this 2v1. If this ends up being a break even, that's really a victory for Orange Esports. So the fact that they've been able to kill him not once but twice now in only 6 minutes is not so great for Orange Esports in the grand scheme of things. So very, very nicely done indeed. From Poliwag's Priest perspective though, what's interesting about this play is it doesn't really feel like a mistake. If you watch it from his perspective, where are you, Mr. Handle a Baby? Let's go back one more. He goes up, he grabs the rune, no problemo. He sees in the mid lane, oh look, there's Forsaken Archer, there's Aluna, what are they going to do? I'm safe. And he just totally misjudges it. He even comes up with the Hex to try and slow down Aluna a little bit. That didn't really feel like a misplay. That wasn't Poliwag Priest manning up. That wasn't Poliwag Priest doing something stupid and being greedy. He just did a minor miscalculation, but I have to admit, I would have done the same thing in that scenario. Someone in chat bringing up a very, very good point, something that I was going to touch on in a couple of minutes here about Meraxes being tanky. He doesn't get tanky till level 6, and that was one of the problems with this initial laning phase. I'm actually going to talk about that in a couple minutes here, but this is the beginning of it. This is the first push from this Legion team. Ophelia with a couple of minions, Tempest with 6 of those elemental replicas, and this tower is going to fall. I mean, there's just no anti-push. There's nothing Nymphora and Meraxes can do. Nymphora doesn't have enough damage. Meraxes, I mean, he can do some damage with Quake, but it's hard for them to clear that up. More than half damage was done to that tower, and I mean, nothing was really risked. Okay, a couple of Tempest elementals, that's all. Another big play comes about right here. Slither actually kind of in trouble. Moves into the trees, ports down to the close tower, gets the courier, pops a series of potions, and then goes back in. Incredible. Look at Trouf. He's like, whoa! Whoa, Trouf's shit in the bed right now. He can't believe it. Incredible. It's such a smart play. It's not something that we would normally think to ourselves, I know, Hag's going to chase me into the jungle. I'm not going to be able to get the courier as quickly as I would like. I might as well just port to this tower. Most people probably would have ported home, or they wouldn't have ported at all. But he wasn't afraid to use the port, and it kept him alive. I mean, I don't know if Hag would have killed him there. Certainly there was the opportunity for FJ to hunt him down. But a very, very crafty play nonetheless. Just observing that playstyle of Orange Esports once more. Continuing right along the top lane here, and again, initiation onto Meraxes, and I don't know if they actually finish him off here. Poliwag does roam up, and this is just going to finish that initial push, continuing to show the power of what this Legion team has. Of course, Poliwag Priest has wards here, so that means this tower is virtually a free kill. The problem is that Meraxes is level 5, and someone pointed that out in chat. He is not very high leveled right now. It's one of the reasons why you see Meraxes in the solo lane fairly frequently at games of this caliber, because he needs that experience. He's one of these level 6 heroes like Poliwag Priest. As soon as he hits level 6, he is a different hero. hero. He has more damage, and he has vastly increased survivability. So up in this top lane, I think Nymphora spent just a little bit too much time in the lane. If she could have just sat to the side and given Meraxes a little bit more of that experience, this little engage right here could have gone much, much differently. The fact that they were able to push that tower and Polywog didn't need to burn his wards is really not a good sign, and that makes me just a little bit nervous for how this Hellborn team is going to deal with the arsenal that Orange Esports has in this match. Wang Wang going to get caught again. Nothing too revolutionary about that, just unfortunately got a little bit too far forward. Of course, all the while a tower did fall in the mid lane here. So continuing to scoot ahead. Beautifully done right there. A little kill ski for the Legion side. Gonna keep sipping away at my peppermint tea until we get to the point where I want to be, which is at about the 11-minute mark. So we are getting very, very close. Right now, though, this game is looking relatively even. Just looking at the difference in team information, 1.6k gold, 600 experience. It's a nice little lead, but nothing groundbreaking. And given this super aggressive lineup that Orange Esports has, and a Forsaken Archer on the opposition that's farming very nicely, mind you, if we glance at that GPM chart, I would be feeling a little bit nervous right now. I'd be thinking to myself, guys, we need to push a bit more aggressively. Yeah, we're just at level 6 mark. They're getting to that point where they're starting to peak a little bit, but I'd be feeling just a little bit nervous. They're on the right track, but they need to keep up the momentum. And this is really when they kick it into high gear. It's almost like they had it mapped out in their minds. When we get X item, when we hit X time on the in-game time, when we hit X level as a team, we are going to make it happen, because that's kind of what we see in the upcoming moments, and that's one of the things about this game that makes it really interesting, because Orange Esports executes so well. They have to be very wary against this Forsaken Archer, as that farm is quite scary. As someone noted in chat earlier as well, although Emerald Warden would have been a good pick here, one thing about Forsaken Archer is she is going to farm faster. So in that early game, if she has that opportunity to free farm, she's going to capitalize on it a little bit more effectively than Emerald Warden, and that's a really good thing to point out. So whoever said that, shout out to you. Also, that adding to why Forsaken Archer is able to keep up with Mr. Slither here, despite Slither having picked up quite a few solo kills on Wretched Hag. So let's continue on here. I do believe we have an engage coming up in the very near future. Slither does have kind of his core set up, and here it is. Okay, so this is going to start with Slither getting caught. You just kind of watch it in fast motion. The key is that he manages to get his ultimate and all the rest of his damage off. Tempest has a brilliant port coming in, uses the Elemental Void, and Glacius with the follow-up damage secures both kills for the Legion side, making it a 2-for-1 exchange. Beautifully executed. It's buttery smooth. It's like this 1080p stream. Smooth like butter. Butter that's been left out in the sun. Let's run it back. Let's run it back and take a look. So the big play right here comes from Slither. And part of that is just these two heroes not having enough crowd control to prevent him from doing what he wanted to do. Wretched Hag doesn't have enough mana to drop his ultimate, which is very unfortunate. But Slither, oh my god, don't underestimate his damage. Both these guys try to pour it out. I mean, this timing from Tempest couldn't have been more spot on. Because this is that point where they've already committed to porting. FJ's thinking to himself, alright, I've got this port channeling. Is Tempest going to be able to kill me? I'm not going to blink right away. That's what he's thinking to himself right now. I almost guarantee it. He's in chat, so you can probably correct me if I'm wrong. But that makes this so much easier for Tempest. Absolute superb timing. All that damage from Slither is not something to be underestimated. I mentioned that Slither is going to carry throughout the mid-game just because of that magic damage. If he stays leveled appropriately, if he hits level 11 first in the game, he is going to be doing an absurd amount of damage regardless of what item build he's doing. And that's why that tanky Slither build works so well. So Tempest is going to come in here, going to drop the Elemental Void, beautifully placed as well. Right when you get to that center, it does maximum damage. Just look how fast these heroes are dropping. This is on half speed, and they're dropping that quickly. Oh, Glacius, look at you doing that DPS. Very, very nice indeed. So that is the beginning of the next 30-minute rough patch that our Hellborn team is going to experience. Finally, Orange Esports is starting to really feel like they're in a good spot in this game. Ophelia going to get caught again. Wang Wang having back-to-back-to-back bad deaths, or I shouldn't say bad, unnecessary deaths. But lo and behold, in the bottom lane, Glacius and Tempest are going to follow up those kills with a push. Going to take their second tier 1 tower of the game in the mid lane. All the while, Polywog Priest uses his wards to take out that tier 1 tower. The pushing madness has begun. All of a sudden, Orange Esports has dropped 3 towers in about 3 minutes. Polywog Priest actually didn't even have to use his wards. Pardon me, I misspoke. Has the double damage on. They're going to be able to take this tier 2 out in the mid in a matter of seconds. I mean, look how fast it's dropping. There's nothing the Hellborn team can do. What are they going to do? Who's going to stop it? Aluna? Alright, she's going to throw her stick. Alright, that doesn't stop the wards. That doesn't stop the Slither wards from tanking it so the Voodoo wards can stay alive. By the time this fight engages, the tower is already dead. That's part of the power of this Legion team. They need to be very wary here, though, as they're low on their cooldown. Slither has no ultimate. Pollywog Priest, well, just used his ultimate. Tempest doesn't have one. Of course, Slither falls. I believe Pollywog Priest falls as well. So you could say a little bit of a misstep for Orange Esports. Maybe a bit too aggressive. But still, taking out that second tier tower is very important. We're going to see time and time throughout this match that this tier 2 tower in the mid lane proves to be one of the most valuable structures in the game. Forget about the throne, forget about the sets of racks that we see on both sides. This tower right here is the moneymaker. As this game goes on, Ophelia is going to start using that judgment a bit more defensively to send her teammates back to the well. They're a little bit stinky. They need to take a bath, and she's going to help them out with that. They can port back to this tower and get back to the fights very, very quickly. This access point ends up being so key. And I think the reason Orange Esports pushed so aggressively there and actually sacrificed a couple of kills to pick up that tower because they wanted to have that access point advantage. And as this game goes on, the lack of pushing power from this QsQ lineup makes it such that they never really kill that second tier tower. I think they may kill it around like the 50-minute mark or something, and I'm not even sure if it goes down at that point. And that proves to be something that really holds them back as this game goes on. So just keep those things in mind as we continue to enjoy this game now about 15 minutes in. And I mentioned this is the point when things start to get really scary. And oh my gosh, did I just miss a kill? What did I just miss, guys? Luckily it's a replay and we can run it back. Let's take a look here. Aluna going to go up a little bit. Oh yes, this kill. See, this is what I'm talking about. You see these heroes, you don't see Glacius and Ophelia and think, run! Get the fuck out! We're going down! You don't think that. You just think, oh, it's Glacius. Forsaken Archer's here. He's pretty farmed. He's got levels on everybody. He's going to keep me safe, right? You know, it's not like Fresh Blunts is up far. He's between his base tower and this tier 2 tower that's at full health. That was not a risky play. That was not even like, oh man, what are you thinking, Fresh Blunts? What were you thinking? Well, I mean, you can't really fault him for that. So this fight starts out bad. FJ's team makes the smart decision. They say, alright, fine, you know what, we're just going to take a tower for a tower. We need to get a little gold pick-me-up here to stay in this game. They're going to take a tier 1, sacrifice their tier 2, and I actually think that's the right play. In some situations, it just makes sense. Lift going to be used. They're going to finish off the tier 1 first. That'll give them a little bit of an edge as far as port time. Going to be able to make it back. Holy Toledo, those elementals. And now Orange Esports is in a bit of a conundrum. What are they going to do? They're going to continue pushing because they have all of their ultimates up. That's one of the other key things to note. One thing that this Hellborn side needs to try to do is force the Legion side to at least burn their cooldowns when they push these towers. If they push these towers without using any of their big cooldowns, this game is going to be over before this Forsaken Archer can even say Firebrand. Firebrand, there we are. It's a little bit scary to think that tier 2 tower fell and all of these cooldowns are up. Every single one of them. I mean, those are some scary ultimates right there. They all have a huge AoE impact on what happens in these team fights. Absolutely huge. You know, funny story, actually, about these lineups. You guys want to hear an embarrassing anecdote about back in the day? So, before I started everything, before I started esports, StarCraft, I was pretty into Heroes of New Earth. It was kind of my thing. And I originally started a StarCraft 2 website. Hypercrew.com. That's what's up. We're repping the old school colors today. Before that, I was actually going to start a website called HON Life, and the plan was to do pretty much what HONcast does, stream and cast stuff. Right around the time that project was maybe 60% complete for release, HONcast launched, and I saw their website and went, all right, I'm done. Threw in the towel, jumped ship, and went over to StarCraft. No lie, true story, honlife.org. Well, actually, first, I think it was honlife.com. The domain expired, then we tried to bring it back, and I bought honlife.org. Never really took off again, and I canceled it. Anyway, at that time, my little group of friends, we were all like, all right, what can we do? What kind of content? And our plan, because we were really into World of Warcraft arenas, was to come up with team names that were ridiculously stupid, like all the WoW names, like TSG, and like, what was it, like Warrior Cleave, Melee Cleave, Wizard Cleave, Shadow Cleave, all the Cleaves. We had a couple Cleaves. We had Storm Cleave, and we had Ward Cleave, alright? Storm Cleave, you got Zephyr, Tempest, Glacius, I forget what the other two were, but they were Stormy Ultimates. Oh, Thunderbringer, one of the other ones. Storm Cleave, hello, and then, check this one out, Ward Cleave, strikingly similar to actually what we see in this game. It was Pollywog Priest, Slither, Tempest, I want to say Defiler, because we didn't have anybody that could play Ophelia, but we had a lot of people that could play Defiler. And Glacius. Pretty similar, same kind of a concept. It just makes me laugh. Every time I see the warriors, all I can think of is Ward Cleave. So back into it here. I've lost my train of thought with that little anecdote. Alright, so okay, back to what we were thinking. God, what we were thinking. I'm so tongue-tied. So anyway, this is when Orange Esports starts that kind of non-stop aggression with the cooldown rotation. That's really when this starts. I have it marked down at least 6 times. We see a push, then about a 2-minute break to wait for that Tempest ultimate, then another push, and slowly they whittle down these structures. There's one tier 2 tower remaining down in this bottom lane, and I think that's where Orange Esports ends up going here. I don't think we actually see an engage coming up. So again, in the interest of time, we're not doing so well in time. We're only 17 minutes into this ridiculously long replay. So we're going to go on ×8 for a minute here. I don't trust the little replay control timer thing. I jotted down some timestamps a while ago, and it didn't do it justice. So down here we see a little bit of kill exchanging. Tempest picks up a kill in exchange for Glacius. Really not a big deal. Nice use of the Nymphora ulti though. It's always good to see a Nymphora ulti being utilized. That is one of the complaints that is made by casters quite frequently, that Nymphora's ultimate is underutilized by certain Nymphora players. So we can take a look at the items here as well, particularly this Tempest. And you'll notice he's still on red boots, 18 minutes in. Not a care in the world because he's got Puzzle Box. Very atypical Tempest build, but it fits very much so into their pushing strategy that's trying to be executed here. Of course, he has a Ring of the Teacher, Ophelia with the Astrolabe and the Plated Greaves. That spells push to me, and we'll see even more pushing items come out very quickly. And one of the reasons that Slither fits so well into this roster with this tanky build is because Barrier Idol is one of the best pushing items in the game. If you're building Slither like a tank, it makes sense that you're probably going to get a Barrier Idol. Really, really cool stuff. A lot of synergies that we previously didn't really think would exist, but actually do amongst these heroes. Continuing on here, looks like Ophelia is going to find herself in a little bit of a sticky wicket here, as she actually does survive thanks to all that great healing. The big Astrolabe. Astrolabe, one of the items that I actually put a lot of thought into when I first looked at this replay. The Hellborn team never picks up an Astrolabe throughout this match, and I coined that as a little bit of a mistake just because the Legion team has one. They need that sustain in these team fights, especially to deal with that Slither ultimate. They do end up picking up a Barrier Idol, which is absolutely great, but I think an Astrolabe probably would have helped. So moving right along, this is probably one of the windows of this match that should have been skipped. But, oh, we do have a team fight coming up here. So, alright, let me run this back, and this is clean again. This is the reason why I said before that the format of this show is best for replays, like 40 minutes max, maybe a pinch longer. That's really the replays longer than that, like this one. You have to spend too much time fast forwarding, and it's a little bit harder to follow the games. So, oh gosh, I turned off my health bars. There we go. So, Polywog Priest is going to get caught. In this fight, he gets killed before he even gets his ultimate off. But what's interesting is this fight actually still isn't over. Orange Esports ends up doing a little bit of work here and kind of turn it around. So unfortunate for Polywog Priest. Meraxis does go back in, but he kind of ends up getting caught. Hag comes out and is gearing up for an ultimate. Tempest catching the money ult. And although Hag does connect with Tempest, it's just not enough. And the fight continues, and the fight actually ends up swinging way in favor of the Legion side. A big portion of that is that sustain that I talked about. The Astrolabe in junction with the Ophelia ultimate just gives them so much more sustain than the Hellborn team, and also all that poison damage from Slither does inverse sustain for the other team as well. So now things looking very, very scary, I think, is where this game is headed. If you're that Hellborn team, you're sort of thinking to yourself, uh-oh, guys, we need to be pretty careful. We're running out of towers. We're running out of breathing room. What are we going to do? And this is one of these times now where the cooldown rotation has started. We see Tempest. All of these cooldowns, for the most part, are all the ultimates, I should say, are on cooldown, except that of Polywog Priest because he got nuked out. But they're just going to slowly group up, being very mindful of the timers, going to start pushing this bottom lane. If you think about it, Tempest with 80 seconds, it's going to pop up just about the time they get started in the base. One of the mistakes that a lot of lower tier players make is they say things like, well, we can't push until the Tempest ultimate is up. Well, maybe. You can start the push when the Tempest ultimate isn't up. You don't want to fight without the Tempest ultimate, and that's kind of the key with this push as well. Again, little takeaways that we can move down to the lower brackets, little things that we can do to improve our plays. Very important to note as well. So that's one thing ORGE Esports does here. They have about 60 seconds or so, but if I recall correctly, the Tempest ultimate comes up about halfway through this fight. It actually isn't up right when they need it, so they may have jumped the gun just a pinch, but nonetheless, the point is the same. So another bit of initiation here. The wards actually do make it out this time. In this fight, Glacius is the first one to fall, but Meraxis falls shortly after thanks to that slow start. He's just really not that tanky force that he would like to be. Tempest still waiting for that ultimate cooldown, about 25 seconds or so, but look at that Polywog ward placement, chipping away at the tower while the rest of this fight's going on. So even if ORGE Esports breaks even in this fight, if it's a 1-for-1, or even if they go 0-for-1, they're still going to be able to take out that tower. They did trade 1-for-1, of course Meraxis did buy back, and they do score the deny, so this was a pretty good defense from the Hellborn team, all things considered. They really did a pretty nice job. The Meraxis buyback was worth it. I think it's probably a break-even buyback, but still worth it nonetheless, and they do manage to pick up a kill. So ORGE Esports going to do what ORGE Esports does best. Regroup, spend their newly found gold, and continue to make the push happen again, except with some shiny new gems. Ophelia going to go ahead and pick up a Soul's Bulwark here to complement their pushing power, and then going to start work towards a Storm Spirit. Slither now has his Barrier Idol, and as I said, that is a huge pushing tool. Again, to reiterate the point that most of us should be pretty comfortable with by now, Barrier Idol affects all of the allied units around you, so that does include creeps and friendly units. 400 magic damage will be absorbed on a 300 hit point creep. That really adds to their survivability, especially against teams that don't have that much creep clearing potential. Aluna and Ymphora don't have enough to clear creeps through that Barrier Idol, which makes pushing that much more difficult to defend. So again, ORGE Esports now, look at the cooldowns, just monitor these bad boys over here. Cooldowns are up, Barrier Idol is going to be used, and they're going to move in. The Ward Cleave has spawned. Slither are going to throw down the wards, and if you'll notice the ward placements, they throw the Voodoo wards down, and Slither generally puts his little Toxic wards down in front of them so that they can tank some of those tower blows. You see how he positions those right there, takes blows from the tower to keep those wards alive. Throughout this fight, these few wards that survive actually end up being kind of hero wards. We see Tempest got an ultimate off, but it actually wasn't really so good while the rest of the Legion team was kiting heroes about. Meraxis ends up falling, if I'm not totally mistaken. The wards, it's just so much damage between the minions, the wards, the poison. It's just ridiculous. These two champion Voodoo wards were just nailing that tower the entire time. Absolutely fantastic. So, puzzle box pushing as well. So many units on the ground. So let's run this back and just take a second look at this fight. And is this the fight that I'm thinking it is? Where... hold on, give me 1 second. So, yeah, but it just makes this so much more difficult to push. No, okay, this isn't the fight that I was thinking of. So, these two wards, I want to look at these wards right here. Tempest gets interrupted right away. No Shrunken Head. Not the best Tempest ultimate that he gets off all game. But these Voodoo wards are champions. These two stay alive despite pretty much everything. And they just do constant chip damage at this tower. They start taking a little bit damage from the creeps, then they get aggroed. They're still alive, just focused on that tower. So the whole time, ORGE Esports isn't even really focusing the tower, yet when the fight's done, it's practically dead. It's 300 hit points out of deny range. Pretty impressive, showing you what their strategy is all about. Again, not going to overcommit, just going to back out. They'll happily take that 1-for-1 trade to take that structure damage in return. And they're just going to keep doing this. Rinse and repeat, to steal a term from World of Warcraft rating. Again, they're going to continue with these pushing items. Tempest is going to go ahead and pick up Puzzle Box level 3 now, which is, well, quite huge indeed. Wang Wang continuing towards that Storm Spirit, and as we'll see, this game plays a very, very pivotal role. What's interesting about this match as well from the breakdown perspective is the first half we can admire this strategy, look at the nuances of how it's executed, and just learn a thing or two about very pushing aggressive lineups. But towards the end of the game, the last 10 minutes or so, we just see a series of big plays that are worth examining. We see Ophelia doing some crazy work with Storm Spirit and Tempest getting off some of the most insane Tempest ultis I have ever seen. So it's a good replay for kind of a plethora of reasons, so bear with me as it is a little bit scattered, maybe a little bit less cohesive than some of the replays we've had in the past. Let's go back down to the 1 speed here. We'll see the tower fall. Meraxis going to go straight in. Wretched Hag connects with the ultimate onto Ophelia. Again, the sustain is there. Ophelia just going to drop the ultimate, drop the Astrolabe, and the fight continues. No one is dead yet, despite all this damage coming out. And then all of a sudden, Orange Esports starts to pull ahead. Mr. Ghost does go down. Poor Glacius. He is like wet tissue paper. But all of a sudden, they start pulling ahead. This Hellborn team is headed for the well. They're headed for the hills, leaving their naked barracks just open to the environment. Open to all of this auto attack damage, the series of voodoo wards just pounding into them. So difficult to defend indeed. They're not going to be able to finish off the wards quite fast enough, and I think they lose Rax in this push, if I'm not terribly mistaken. Marax is going to overcommit. He's going to go way out there. Wretched Hag going to try and help him, but not much he can do. Archer going to follow in the same footsteps here. Nymphora with a nice ultimate with a Luna there, actually going to come out and they start to clean this up. And this actually isn't the fight that I thought it was when I started casting the play-by-play. Look at that from Slither. Look at that heads up denied. Beautifully, beautifully executed. And just look at this communication. They're running parallel to one another on opposite side of the trees. This positioning is so spot on. If a Luna stuns, even though it's on cooldown, not going to connect with both of them. If Forsaken Archer throws a volley, which is off cooldown, not going to connect with both of them. If Nymphora does anything pretending she had mana, probably not going to be able to connect with both of them. Positioning so spot on. Running in absolute tandem, moves over, boom, denied at the last second. Now Slither's in trouble. He's going to try and port out the smart play. Tempest comes in. We're just going to watch this in half speed to admire the decision making. Okay, the port gets canceled thanks to the Luna stun, and right here, Shuyu says, I'm coming, buddy. Slither is doomed. Tempest mans up, not only keeping Slither alive with about 20 hit points to spare, but also doing the math, knowing that he can secure a kill on the FJ here on that Wretched Hag, turning this fight into a 2-for-2 exchange. Of course, he does fall, making it a 3-for-2 in the end, but most importantly, he keeps his Slither alive. Huge man-ups from Shuyu right there, beautifully executed. And I do want to point out, he's still sitting on red boots. We are now 30 minutes into this game. So, continuing forward, Orange Esports just going to go back, regroup, again, do what they do best, wait for some of these cooldowns to pop up, and just continue pressuring. They didn't manage to secure the racks in that push. Like I said, I thought that was the rack-killing push, but indeed it was not. Nymphora going to utilize the ultimate. We're going to skip it back as I was admiring the barracks here. And let's see how this kill gets set up. Alrighty, here we go. So Nymphora just ports on. This is a pretty straightforward Nymphora ulti. Meraxis has his portal key, of course. Goes straight on to Slither. Uses the barrier idol, but not going to be enough to keep him alive. Glacius does come in, however, to buy valuable time. That's really the important thing to note. Trying to path block a little bit, dropping the slows. Polywog Priest comes in, and they are able to turn this bad boy around. Meraxis going to get stunned. Polywog going to come in with the beautifully placed ward trap, followed up by the tongue tie. Ophelia going to come in to chase down Nymphora while they finish off Meraxis. So Meraxis is going to fall, despite getting that arcane shield off, and actually Nymph falls at almost the exact same time, so a very well-timed death sequence there. It's like Olympic deathing. Sorry, that was an incredibly lame joke, but the point is the same. So now they're going to have to wait, but look at the cooldown difference here. Polywog Priest now on par with Tempest within about a second or so. Ophelia just now picking up that Storm Spirit. There it is. So some big item pickups have been made now. Ophelia is definitely getting a little bit scary, getting closer to that point that made this game so well known, I guess, from yesterday. The Hellborn side has made some item pickups that shouldn't be scoffed at either. Wretched Hag as well as Forsaken Archer here have picked up their Shrunken Heads, which is pretty big, but important to note that Tempest Ultimate does counter Shrunken Head just a little bit. Shrunken Head prevents the damage from coming through, but the disable is still there, and that's one of the most important things. That Tempest Ultimate is so long. If you can get a good one off and disable Forsaken Archer through 3 seconds of an 8-second Shrunken Head, that is huge. That's a huge percentage of that item just being completely mitigated. Doing the math. Doing the math. One problem at a time. So Orange Esports now has their cooldowns up in perfect rotation with just a few seconds to spare, waiting for that golden opportunity to move in and make it happen and actually finish off these barracks. They're just looking for that prime opportunity. Ophelia sitting here with 2 Catman champions. So of course going to be able to put out a nice bit of AoE damage as well, synergizing very nicely with Tempest and all of the other AoE damage that can come about. Voodoo Ward's going to go straight down, focusing the melee racks. As Meraxis mans up, they do pick up a kill onto Wang Wang before he can get his stuff off, but this is what I was talking about with this Tempest ultimate. Disabling Forsaken Archer for that duration is actually very, very powerful, and there are a couple other things in this team fight that we're going to point out when we go over it in slow motion. This really should have been a fight that the Hellborn side should have been able to win rather handily. in my humble opinion. Being able to take out Ophelia before she gets her ultimate off, before she gets the Astrolabe off, that's huge. And you need to be able to capitalize on that. Of course, the racks do fall here. It ended up being a 1-for-3 exchange. There's nothing that a Luna can do to hold this off. Forsaken Archer busy taking a bath in the well. So let's run this back a little bit and see what we missed in this rather chaotic team fight as we check it out onto on half speed. Alright, so the barrier idols used, same thing that we've seen before. Again, rinsing and repeating. Catman Champions going in, Elementals, Puzzle Box, Wards, Toxin Wards, Barrier Idol, Ring of the Teacher on, Astrolabe ready, Soul's Bulwark set to negative. Just think about all of that pushing power right there. Beautiful initiation, Juice Produce comes in, beautifully executed. I think the big thing we're going to have to point out is this Wretched Hag over here. We're just going to enjoy a nice zoomed in. It's so unfortunate. Big time whiff. Big time miss there. Absolutely missed everything. So if he had connected with these 3 heroes right here instead, that would have been a vastly different team fight. That's a lot of AoE damage that Wretched Hag could have done. He is level 16. The only hero that's level 16 in this game, less that of Forsaken Archer. That is a huge damage dealer. You need every bit of that 600 DPS. Barrier Idol is off. That would have almost killed Glacius straight up. He has no magic armor. Would have taken Polywog Priest down to the red, and Tempest would have been at like half health. Wow. That was a big misstep. Continuing forward here, this Tempest ultimate is actually very nicely placed. Disabling Forsaken Archer when no one else can is really important. Polywog Priest heading for the hills, and of course what's also important to note is the Voodoo Wards do physical damage, so keeping him close to the Voodoo Wards while that Shrunken Head is on is also an ideal situation, as the physical damage will be going through that Shrunken Head. So as the fight continues, the sustain is just, well, I was going to say the sustain is there, but it kind of isn't since their Astrolabe and Ophelia is dead. Just too much damage comes out despite Ophelia falling. Meraxis just not too tanky to survive that initiation, and we see Hag get taken out kind of simultaneously here with Nymphora as it ends up getting split into a 2v or 2 separate fights. So let's just do tanky, man. Look at this ridiculous survivability. He's going to be able to survive against Archer, and Archer survives. The rest is history. The racks fall, yada, yada, yada. So a lot of stuff going on in that fight. Again, nothing too groundbreaking. This is also the 3rd time I'm looking at it. The pre-game was kind of interesting. There was some natural... Yeah, when I first saw... Let me just tell you, okay. When I first saw that Hag ultimate, I actually missed it the first time I went to that fight. I was just, you know... I usually... Really, what catches my eye with the Hag ult is that animation when the... I guess it's a bat. The haunt actually gets applied because it's kind of big. So if I kind of miss the ult, I can see right away, okay, it hit 3 people. So that's just one of those little tricks with casting against Wretched Hag. So since it didn't hit anybody, I didn't really register it in my mind. So I missed it. And someone in chat was like, no, go back. Look at Wretched Hag. Just no, go away. And I looked at it. I took a sip of coffee. I almost spit it on my keyboard. And I'm going to have to trim it out and just put it on YouTube. It's just like Zyori's reaction to fail Wretched Hag. Just like, it was pretty funny. It was quite the good one. The prep is always a little bit more fun than the breakdown, my humble opinion here. So anyhow, let's get back into it for the sake of time. So 35 minutes in, we're getting towards the end. What time is it? Oh, we're doing okay on time. We're not doing great, but we're doing okay. So we're going to speed ahead. Let me glance at my notes here. Is there anything that I've failed to point out over the last couple minutes here? 15, 20, 36. So okay, so here we go. All right. Let's watch this little engage. Hag, unfortunately, is just caught way too far forward. That's not really, nothing really to that fight, other than. Sorry about that. I need just a moment here. So anyway. This is the time in the game where this Hellborn side can do absolutely nothing but defend. Really, right now, this game is pretty much over. Even if ORGE Esports throws a fight, maybe 2, maybe even 3, this game is fairly close to over. I mean, they can't get too overboard, but if they keep rinsing and repeating this strategy, I think it's proven that there's really nothing the Hellborn team can do. It's ORGE Esports' game to throw. If they don't execute properly from here, certainly they can still lose. But if they just keep executing this very methodical play that we see here, again, wards come down, puzzle box popped, ring of the teacher on, barrier idol up, elementals out, Astrolabe, Ophelia, ulti at the ready. I mean, they're on the go here. They're ready to make it happen. And before the fight even starts, yet again, this tower's down to half health. The Hellborn seem doing everything they can. We're actually even going to see Forsaken Archer pop the Shrunken Head, probably a bit too early. but still going to pop the Shrunken Head. And that will fend off this push. Sort of. The damage has been done, though. All they have to do is rinse and repeat. Once all 3 sets of racks are down, it's over. Game's done. There's nothing you can do against Super Creeps unless you have like a Mage Bane that is just insane Gosu farmed. That's just the matter of the beast. The fight does continue, though, and we'll see how this one plays out because there are a couple fights floating around my head here. And it starts off, of course, with Kiptiji getting taken out, but FJ quickly turns it around on Handle a Baby. And now Slither going to be in a little bit of trouble. Tempest going to come in, though, and uh-oh! Big Papa in the house! Tempest turns it around, and yeah, that is the icing on the cake a little bit. There's going to be a little bit of a misplay here. Tempest, oh, you should have stunned Luna. That was a free kill smacking you in the face, and instead you wanted to secure it on Meraxis. I understand wanting to kill Meraxis. He is a big douchebox, but you could have killed Luna also, so a little bit of a mistake there. Let's run this back, and I just want to point out one of the things about Tempest in this fight, and this actually was the fight that I initially thought. Let's run it back even a step further here. Go for the play button. Tempest is still on red boots. No Shrunken Head. Keep those 2 things on the back burner as this is continuing. Ultimate coming up in 5 seconds, so he's thinking a few steps ahead here, staying out of harm's way, being very careful not to get overzealous, not to take too much damage. Meraxis has an ultimate up. Tempest ulti is now up. Tablets forward, look at that opportunity. I mean, he just positioned himself beautifully, so the second Elemental Void comes up, he can hop forward and catch really what should have been all 4 of these, but he only manages to catch 3. It was close. I mean, that's a hard one to catch. Probably in the ideal scenario could have caught all 4, but they're all fanning out. So, I mean, I'm not going to complain about that Tempest ultimate. It was huge. So they're going to drop his right away. Unfortunately, they don't have the DPS to follow up to get all 4 kills like they really should have been able to. Like I said, right here. Wait, no, where is it? Right here. Tempest, oh god, you've got the stun. If he had dropped it on a Luna, that's just a free kill, man. A stun and an auto attack, a Luna's dead. Meraxis was probably dead anyway. He's already slowed by Slither. Glacius and Ophelia are right there. I'm pretty sure Juice Produced was boned regardless. Perhaps Tempest, though, just wanted to be very mindful of the Arcane Shield. You know, can't complain with playing it safe, but still, could have been a double tap. So, as I said, at this point, the game is over. Well, now, I feel really comfortable saying that. 38 minutes in, 2 lanes of racks. Forsaken Archer's kind of farmed. Not really that crazy. I mean, yeah, she's got a shield breaker. She's a little scary, but she's not over the top. We can glance at the GPM chart. She's still leading the way, but she's not at 500 GPM right now. This isn't a snowballed Zephyr. They're still keeping up. They're still on par. And with 2 lanes of racks, again, there's nothing the Hellborn side can do. You can kind of cross off. If we had a list of things that this Hellborn team can't do, not really going to be able to do Kongor, not going to be able to push up to take out any of those tier 2 towers, let alone pressure the base, not even really going to be able to farm their jungle. So they're going to continue falling behind in gold farm. All things that are very important to point out about what the Hellborn team can do. They're boxed into a corner. All they can do is defend and let Forsaken Archer pick up all the last hits, meaning their supports are kind of just running in circles right now, trying to get wards out wherever appropriate, but they're in a rough spot. They're waiting for Orange Esports to throw. That's why they're not conceding. They're waiting for Orange Esports to make that misstep. Orange Esports they're playing with fire. If they move up too far, if they get genocided and Forsaken Archer still alive, it's going to be rough. It can still get turned around, but things are looking pretty tricky, or pretty good at this particular point in time. So we're starting to do bad on time. We're not going to have too many more interruptions, and I'm going to continue on. Taking a look here. So I think a fight commences momentarily. Ophelia going to start using that Storm Spirit and changing the game coming up in the near future here. Meraxis is going to get a beautiful initiation, and this is the first sign of throw. This is when things get hairy for Orange Esports. They have a terrible initiation. It actually couldn't really be much worse. Slither gets the barrier idol off at the last second, and it doesn't do anything. A 3-for-0 exchange. Glacius ports out. He actually manages to survive but handle a baby. He's deadsy. He's frownsy townsies. Let's just run it back and look at what happened here. Why did they get into this mess? And it's because they just didn't have any vision. If you take a look right here, the Hellborn side actually doesn't really have much vision either. They get a little bit of a scout. It's just a great read from Meraxis. He sees the opportunity, he sees them all clumped up, and he just goes for it. That was all Meraxis right there, baby. Hag also lands a beautiful ultimate. FJ going to redeem himself a little bit after that blunder that happened in front of the base. And he's going to be able to pick up a double tap here. He might actually, does he pick up the kill? Does he get a hat trick? Oh, they don't let him get the hat trick. Oh, what meanies. But all the while, the creeps pushed in, and they're running out of breathing room. These structures are getting pretty low. They're running out of structures in general. You know, there's that time when you can only fight in the base because you have to be a hop and a skip away from your throne to keep the creeps from finishing it off. ORGE Esports going to continue on doing what they're doing, gonna do about 3 more rotations of pushing into the base with their very methodical play, figuring, hey, if we suicide a couple times but manage to finish off this last lane, it's over. There's nothing they can do against mega creeps. The creep clear is not there. That's their priority right now at this stage of the game, because they are running out of time. Most people would kind of be surprised that they've lasted this long, and that does complement the Hellborn team a little bit in their ability to defend this. So, ORGE Esports finally clumped up. They've got all their cooldowns yet again as we look to the left of our screen. And they're going to move forward, just looking for that opportunity, though being notably more cautious than they have been in past engages. And I do believe this is actually one of their less successful engages. They just don't find that opportunity, so they're going to move around, and then they're finally going to pressure up. Here it is. Everything going to get popped, so they're going to use that barrier idol seconds from now, and it is indeed Wretched Hag going to come in really dead set on focusing down Glacius. And that shows the sustain power of this Legion team, just how long it takes them to kill Glacius, despite him not being particularly tanky if you take a gander at his inventory. Tempest does get an ultimate off, not the best ultimate we've seen all game, and they do get scraped up a little bit here, or at least Tempest falls. Ophelia, does she get a big play off here? I think she actually does. The Legion team does stick around. Again, the sustain really coming into play. Were buybacks used in this fight? Nope, no buybacks were used. Continuing on, trying to pressure, and they really got what they came for. It's one of those fights they traded to death for about half health on the tower. That was pretty much what ORGE Esports was hoping for here. ORGE Esports just having a little bit of fun. Ophelia giving us a little bit of a prelude. What's coming up next, using the Judgment, just teasing them a bit as Polywog Priest heads back to the well. But that is indeed a teaser of some of the Ophelia plays that are going to come up here in the next couple minutes. For the 10th time this game, they're going to do the same thing. Rinse and repeat, wait another 2 minutes or 120 seconds for that Tempest ultimate. They're going to regroup, and they're just going to go ahead and push their way to victory, or at least attempt to. And the next fight is going to be 48 minutes, so we can actually skip ahead a little bit here. I would type in the times, but I just don't trust this little replay control thing. It's a little bit buggy. And so here we are. Cooldowns are up. They've farmed up a little bit. We can take a look at some of the inventories. As we get into this fight, we see Slither now has his Geometer's Bane, again complementing that pushing power, giving him the ability to make the images and pressure towers that much more quickly. The engage commences, though. Things start off poorly for Wretched Hag, but Tempest lands a beautiful ultimate, feeling a little bit like GG right here. ORGE Esports with the big plays. Aluna going to get Storm Spirited, down she goes. Pretty just straightforward fight, a beautiful ultimate from Tempest right there. Hag buys back almost immediately. So you drop a relatively nice ultimate. Ophelia uses the heal right away. This fight is going ever so slowly. And here it is. We see the engagement into the base. ORGE Esports gets a little bit overzealous here. Polywog Priest in particular gets way up there. He gets Hellflowered. He gets focused down, and this is where the big play from Ophelia comes out. We saw the Judgment cast right there. He got down to about 4 hit points. Hag's going to come up. Oh, there it is. The Storm Spirit going to come, and so they're going to make, or pardon me, Polywog Priest going to make it towards home. All the while, the creeps pushing in. They finish off one of the base towers. Ophelia getting dangerously low. FJ trying to finish her off. Doesn't have a sonar screen him up, and she's going to be forced back. Just beautiful control all around. Beautiful communication from this Legion team. That is the play right there, though, that started things off with everyone saying, wow. I'm pretty sure there's a thread on the forums right now that's like, Ophelia Tempest, a little bit broken. It's really insane what you can do with Ophelia Judgment and Storm Spirit. It's kind of like when you could use Astrolabe and Storm Spirit oh so many patches ago before it was nerfed. It has a pretty similar flavor. It feels pretty cheesy, especially now that Ophelia's Judgment can be purged. That was one of the big complaints that people were having, is you throw a Judgment on and that's it. You might as well not even focus that hero anymore if you can't kill him within that allotted amount of time. Now that it's purgeable, you can get a Diffusal Blade to try and counter, or a Nullifier Blade to try and counter that. You can get Electrician to purge off the Ophelia's Judgment. When he's stuck inside of a Storm Spirit, you don't have that option anymore. Very, very powerful indeed. And we'll see Ophelia use it actually once more before this game completes. The Legion team, though, now this is kind of that point. It's pretty much over. They've killed that last tier 3 tower. The base tower is almost dead. Wretched Hag going to stay out a bit too far yet again. The shrine is exposed. The racks are exposed. There's really just no way the Hellborn team can come back. They've dug themselves into too deep of a hole. So they try and push up and finish off the racks and actually overcommit a little bit. Slither gets taken out from a little bit of overcommitment, and the racks do survive. So ORGE Esports, for the last time, 50 minutes in, they are going to go back, regroup, wait for those cooldowns, and show us what they're made of once more. The cooldown rotation is what this entire game is based on. We've spent literally the last 30 minutes watching ORGE Esports do the same thing. Very methodically, exactly the same, every single time, and then just slowly adding more items to the mix. They just, oh, look, we got a Geometer's Bane. Oh, let's add another tablet. Oh, yeah, sure, let's add another Shrunken Head. Oh, another Storm Spirit? I think that item is pretty good. That's the way this game's been going. Very difficult to execute. ORGE Esports makes it look very easy, but in fact, this is actually pretty difficult to continue putting on this pressure so methodically, so well, back to back to back to back, and most importantly, to eventually be able to win the game. We're going to see the last hurrah here, though. Meraxis goes in. Storm Spirit going to come out onto Tempest. He's going to get ported back to the base, I do believe. There he goes. Tempest going to go back to the base. The rest of this fight going to continue. What's the first thing Tempest does? Buys a TP and comes to this tower while the rest of his team continues to kite backwards. Slither Illusion going to take a little bit of damage. Look at the positioning from ORGE Esports. They're baiting. They're baiting. Tempest is here. They're ready to make it happen. Look at coming up here. The way they stagger these abilities. Slither turns, shoots the spray, drops the ultimate, Polywog Priest wards, boom! Tempest is there. So beautifully done. That couldn't have gone any better. And I love this right here. This is my absolute favorite part of the game. Somebody screenshot this right here. Elemental Void, their whole team is stuck in it, and one of the Hellborn members, GG. I can't do anything else. I might as well just use that APM to type. I love it. I saw that and just instantly cracked up. But so beautifully done. I mean, ORGE Esports made that look so easy, but that is just such a difficult thing to pull off. One of the things that we've talked about, I know I've said on stream before, is that Tempest is a great hero, but the way to counter him is just not to group up. Teams of this caliber know that Tempest is going to have that powerful ultimate, and if they clump up, it will be their doom. Teams of this caliber do know that. It's hard to bait them into grouping up into these little tiny balls to land a 5-hero ultimate like that. And then to stagger all of those abilities, the Slither ultimate, the Polywog Priest, all right on top of each other, getting all of them stuck right in the middle of the ultimate. The Polywog wards do AoE damage, splash damage for whoever they're targeting. Words can't express how insanely, beautifully, well, great that was executed. It's just absolutely astonishing. ORGE Esports has just... they have a place in my heart. So of course that was the last fight, and I think that's actually the end of the game. Yep, the GGs do come out, and I just want to watch that last fight in fast motion just once more, just to see the initiation of what it looked like if you were playing in that fight. Tempest disappears all of a sudden. You're Meraxis, you're in the front lines trying to do what you can. Glacius throws the freeze. Hag blinks forward. They're trying. They're coming into the fight. Slither turns. Uh-oh. Tempest just comes out. Where did Tempest come from? I thought he was back in the well. Again, remember earlier on when I said this tower right here was going to change the game? Very, very important. This tower not falling was really a big deal. A very intense game. Like I said, the ZyoriTV format really works best for games that are 30 to 40 minutes max, so games that long are a little bit difficult. This breakdown has been very long, and they're usually a little bit scatterbrained. Games that long usually have a lot of different messages, a lot of things that you can pull out of them, so just looking at the whole game straight through in a very linear fashion makes it difficult to gather a nice little nugget of takeaway information. So I do apologize for that. Like I said at the beginning, I did have a different breakdown planned with a couple of replays, but this game came out and it was along the same lines as Tempest. The Tempest stuff I wanted to talk about, at least. There were some parallels, and this game was just so good, I felt like it warranted its own breakdown. So hopefully you did enjoy it. My apologies for it being a little scatterbrained. Like I said, I almost canceled the breakdown today. I woke up with a very, very upset stomach, so I'm glad we did it. This peppermint tea has been the cure, no lie. Been sipping this bad boy down, well, a couple of these bad boys down, and they've been doing the trick. So thank you for watching, guys. I do appreciate it. This VOD will be uploaded very, very quickly, within a couple hours or so. It's going to take a while because it was recorded in 1080p, and it's a huge file. So it will be up if you missed any of the action. I do certainly appreciate it. Make sure you follow all of the social networking at Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Twitter, they're all ZyoriTV. YouTube is ZyoriTV1. And let me see if I can actually... No, I thought I had a graphic sitting right here, ready to go, and I actually don't. I do apologize for the black screen. I thought I had it right here. Nope, I don't. Sorry. Okay. Well, that does it for today, guys. Thank you for watching the Zyori Breakdown once again. We'll see you in the world of New Earth.